Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Zachariah Connor, and today we're talking about the Lambertones Crema pickup. And what is it? Where did it come from? Who is it for? And should you buy it? So let's go. Okay, so let's start off with a very brief overview of this pickup. What does the manufacturer have to say about it and all of that stuff? So from Lambertones pickups themselves, that company was started by Curtis Lamberton, and they have a couple of employees. This pickup, they say that it's PAF-like, but I think as you'll see, it's really not. It is a low output humbucker designed with clarity and top-end presence in mind. And this pickup is really designed to especially suit the needs of the church guitarists, the modern church guitarists of the day, and other contemporary Christian music where they utilize a lot of kind of sparkly, chimey, bright guitar sounds. And this pickup is designed to impart single coil-like clarity and dynamic response, but in a hum-canceling, punchy format. You get some of the benefits of a single coil, the great dynamic response of a single coil, where as you dig in, that treble response increases in a really nice way, versus some humbuckers, which are a little bit more, they're a little more compressed, a little more even, but it just has so much dynamics in it, like a single coil, but it doesn't have the hum and it doesn't have the thinness in the low end. But it's also not so muddy like a lot of humbuckers are in the low mids. So that's what the Lambertones Crema is. And Lambertones also has a pickup called the Grinder, which is, I think, designed to be a little bit more PAF, to get a more traditional humbucker sound. But I've not tried that pickup, so I couldn't tell you what that pickup is like. So now let's get on to a very, very brief history of the Lambertones Crema and the pickups that precede and also are its kind of contemporaries, so to speak. So in 1968, Gibson decides to make this pickup called the T-Top. And really, it's not so much as one pickup as it is more of a family of pickups. It was all of their humbuckers that were produced between 1968 and 1980. So Gibson had been making this pickup called the Patent Applied For humbucker. It was one of the first humbuckers designed by Seth Lover. In 1956 is when they introduced it. And that pickup evolved into the patent number pickup because, of course, they got the patent, and so they put the patent number on the pickup. And then in 1968, they did some changes to make it easier to mass produce. They changed the bobbin to a bobbin that was more durable, was more durable and bent less, and it had T written on the top of it, as you can see in the image right now on your screen, and hence T-top. It had plastic spacers on the bottom instead of wood, and it used 42 American wire gauge polyurethane coated wire instead of the PVA coated plain enamel wire that was used in the PAF, or patent number pickups, which was notoriously difficult to work with, and the poly wire was easier to work with. Most T-top pickups have Alnico 5 magnets, and they're pretty short, so they're not super strong. But then in response to the DiMarzio Super Distortion that was coming out, and some of this, maybe the Seymour Duncan pickups that were higher output at the time, Gibson decides to make a variant that had a bigger, wider magnet, and this made it a lot more powerful, of course. This variant is known as the Dirty Fingers pickup, and is known for its high output. So you can find that on some pickups that are that have the T-top, that have the T label on the bobbin, but they're not low output and bright like the T-top. They're high output, and they really push the amp. They're closer to, like, I think 11 to 13 ohms of DC, kilo ohms of DC resistance, whereas the most of the T-tops are 7.5 kilo ohms of DC resistance. The T-top can be characterized by its bright, low output sound, and they really sound nice when you slam them into a driven amp. They sound really good driven. I got most of this information from a post on the fretboard.co.uk by this poster named Oil City Pickups. I don't know anything about them. Seems to be a pretty valid post since they have pictures of the T-tops and claim to have tested a bunch of them. So in 2011, Lawler Pickups decides to design this new pickup based on a T-top. So Jason Lawler had a 70s Les Paul with T-top pickups in it, and he really liked the sound of them, and he wanted to experiment with Alnico 8 magnets. So Jason Lawler took the T-top pickup and then tweaked it and added it an Alnico 8 magnet instead of the Alnico 5, and came up with the Lawler El Rayo pickup. And this pickup has very low output. It only has 4.0 kilo ohms of DC resistance. It has a very bright and clear tone that's not muddy at all. That's not very much bottom end and low mids. And it was used in the early Veritas guitar builds for Bobby Strand and Michael Pope of Bethel music fame. Some people who are unfamiliar with the kind of Christian music scene, you're probably going to go, what is he, who are these people? You can look them up if you want. If you're watching this video, you'll probably understand that there's a lot of kind of Christian / worship music artists that really like these types of pickups. And because a lot of the sounds that we create are, these pickups serve those sounds really well. So anyway, these two guys are kind of pioneers. They're kind of leaders in this area of, guitar players for church music, and they make really great sounds at Bethel Music on those records in the 2010s. So Veritas Guitars is this custom builder who used to be based in Vancouver, Washington, just across the river from Portland. Casey from Veritas started using the Lawler El Rayo in some of his builds for some of these worship guitar players. And the reason I mentioned Veritas Guitars is because they eventually start making their own pickup to their own specs. And this pickup is called the Bearcat pickup. And you can still get this pickup, but weirdly, you can only get it when you order a brand new custom Veritas guitar. You cannot buy it separate from the guitar, which is kind of a shame because this pickup is really good. It was described by Michael Pope as being more punchy and clear than the Lawler El Rayo. I'm assuming a little bit more output, maybe even more top end as well than the Lawler El Rayo, which is already a pretty bright pickup. But it's only available on new Veritas builds, and so not a ton of people really have access to this pickup since these guitars start above $3,000. Although they were making these Pro Line more mass-produced ones for like $1,000 or $1,500, but they are so rare that it's really hard to get a hold of one. So later, Michael Pope decides to do a collaboration with Veritas Guitars, who has now spun off their pickup brand to its own brand called Pioneer Pickups instead of just Veritas Pickups, right? And so they designed this pickup set called the Pope. Michael describes it as more of a cross between a PAF style pickup and the Bearcat pickup. So it's going to be bigger and warmer than the Bearcat or the El Rayo, and it's going to have more kind of thud and punch. And this pickup has a DC resistance of 6.9 kilo ohms. So I'm assuming it's a little bit closer to the T-top. You know, it's shifted a little bit from the El Rayo kind of closer back to the T-top, or kind of somewhere in the middle. And you can buy this pickup from Pioneer Pickups for $185, $185 right now if you want. I've not tried one, but a lot of people like them. I would love to give it a shot. So maybe I will actually. Lambertones Pickups was founded by Curtis Lamberton somewhere in the 2010s, the late 2010s. I'm assuming somewhere before 2018 or at the beginning of 2018, since this Crema that I have was purchased in 2018. So I'm assuming somewhere between 2016 and 2018 was when Lambertones was founded. If anyone has any more information, throw it in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear about it. The Lambertones Crema has been described as being very clear and bright by Lambertones Pickups and by other people who have listened to them. Some people like to say anemic, thin, and wimpy. The sound engineers who can't stand to have a really bright and clear pickup, they may not like this style of pickup as much. But for some people, it's a really good choice. These pickups have Alnico 8 magnets, and they have a DC resistance of 4.35 kilo ohms, and they retail for a price of $180 per pickup. The Crema really kind of takes after the concept of the El Rayo, and I'm assuming by the DC resistance. And again, you can't measure everything by DC resistance because there are other factors like the different magnet types, different wire gauges, different wire types, different, all kinds of different things that will really affect the tone of the pickup. But if you're comparing humbucker to humbucker, DC resistance does give you a pretty good overall picture of the output if the magnet types are relatively similar and the wire types are relatively similar. I think we can kind of see a theme here, though, is that these pickups generally have a strong magnet and not a lot of wire wrapped around the bobbin, and this kind of recipe of powerful magnet, weak windings gives this really clear, open, not compressed kind of sound. As you overwind a pickup, it tends to kind of lose treble, lose dynamic range. It tends to be kind of get a little more nasal and mid forward, versus a pickup that has less windings is really clear, really articulate, really kind of sparkly and chimey. And we can kind of see that on a lot of different guitars. Like a Stratocaster has a lot of sparkle and clarity, especially vintage sounding ones, because they're not overwound. Same with Telecaster pickups. My Teisco is a great example of that. Link in the description for that guitar because it's super, super underwound. The pickups are they're like 3 kilo ohms or something like that. Super, super low DC resistance. But the magnets aren't weak. They're pretty strong. So this Crema I got from my friend Bradley. I removed the Crema from his guitar, which I put it in his guitar back in 2018, and replaced it with a Seymour Duncan JB. He was looking to do more rock sounds with his main guitar, since he's primarily a rock guy. And we, in our band, we were shifting to a pop punk direction as opposed to kind of the more moody ambient direction that we were kind of going in before. In return for my many services to his instruments, he gifted me this pickup, which is a very generous gift. Thank you, Bradley. Why don't you tell me more about how you got this pickup, Brad? Why don't you do that?
What is up, you nerds? My name is Bradley, and I'm a guitarist in Makeshift Casual alongside Zachariah Connor. And one of the things I loved about the Lambertones Crema was that it could sound like a single coil and a humbucker all in one without having to do anything, like picking by the neck really softly, gave it a nice single coil sound. Then I could just put a little more grit on it by the bridge pickup, and it would sound nice and thick. It was really good. And the only reason I stopped using it was I went more towards a high gain sound, kind of full circle, 5150-esque, really high overdrive. And it wasn't like the best pickup for that. It would feed back to me like really loud at shows. So I had Zach drop in a Seymour Duncan JB in my Strat, one pickup, and coil split it so I could get a single coil. And now it does the high gain thing. And as a way of saying, thank you, Zach, I love you, you're amazing, I gave him the pickup. So now he has the Crema, and I'm sure it's going to sound great. Love you, Zach.
So now let's hear a tone comparison of the Lambertones Crema versus the Seymour Duncan 59 Trembucker. And then we also have, for reference, my Fender Telecaster. It's kind of a parts caster, but it's loaded up with the Fender American Original Telecaster pickups, which is kind of their 50s Telecaster pickup. And then also we have my Gretsch Electromatic G5422TG with the Gretsch Blacktop Filtertrons. After hearing the sound comparison, let me make a few comments. The Telecaster definitely has a bit more mids than the Crema does. The Crema really accentuates the high end, which can be a really good thing for your rig if your rig needs that. If you primarily play through Vox amps or other amps that are really kind of jangly and bright, you might find that the Crema is too much. And you're like, I'm good. I think I'll stick with different pickups. For my rig, I think it works really well. As sometimes I struggle to get the sparkle and clarity out of my amp modeler that I would like, and the Crema really kind of can help with that. I think versus the Gretsch, like I said, it's a little bit more scooped in the mids. It's a little bit less mid forward than the Gretsch, which could be a good thing if you're playing rhythm or lead and you don't want to kind of cloud up the mid range. But some of that may be due to the guitar being different. The Gretsch has a different scale length. It's hollow body versus the solid body Marauder. So there's a whole host of factors that could be causing that difference. But they do kind of sound somewhat similar, so that's why I included it. Versus the 59, you can really hear that the 59 has a way more mids, way less treble, and it's just a big sounding pickup, and it's really nice sounding, and it's not even high output. It's pretty, it's a low output humbucker by most humbucker standards. It's a vintage level of output. The 59 I think is really sweet sounding. It's really good, but the Crema is just a complete, like almost night and day difference. And what I really love about the Crema is the dynamics. It's very, very dynamic. When you play light, the volume drops quite a bit. You don't even need to really use the volume knob with the Crema. You just have to play. You just have to lighten up with your picking hand, and that really makes the world of difference in terms of the volume. And so when you're playing with drive, it's really nice because you can really control the amount of drive by how fast and hard you're picking. Whereas the 59, you would struggle a little bit more with that. I think the Telecaster definitely has some kind of harshness in the mid-range that the Crema doesn't really have. So that kind of harsh honkiness a little bit, but I do think it's really classic and it's a really important tone for, the guitar world in general. So that's why I've included it. And I still really like my Telecaster. It's not to say that I hate it. Let's go into a bit of pros and cons for the Lambertones Crema. So I think in terms of pros, it's really punchy. It has a nice percussive attack that some humbuckers are, cheap humbuckers, when you're testing them out and you're really hitting, it just kind of sounds like rah, 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 and more instead of a instead of that kind of more percussive, aggressive attack that single coil pickups really have. Single coil pickups really have that snap, that transient. The transients are really, really quick. But with some humbuckers, especially higher output, overwound humbuckers, they're a little slower. It feels for the voltage, for the output to kind of get going. And so that's what I really like about the Cremas. It's punchy. It's very punchy. It's very fast. And so I think it could work really well for funk or for more percussive genres of rock. It's really, really clear. The treble boost really helps it to kind of cut through a mix when you have tons of delay and reverb and modulation and drive and other stuff. So it really, really sounds good. And the underemphasized low mids really helps the treble frequencies to pop, but it doesn't really become harsh in a bad way or too piercing, I think, for most people. And it sounds so good clean. You really don't even need to switch to a single coil, split it, or pick up another guitar. It really just sounds fantastic clean. So I think a lot of people will really like it for clean tones or edge of breakup tones and stuff like that. For people who are playing heavy music or music that requires kind of a darker, smoother guitar sound, yes, you could always turn down the tone knob, but some people just might not like the natural sound of it as it is. For the people who are looking for a warmer, smoother, more buttery sound, they might prefer the sound of the Seymour Duncan 59 or some other type of PAF pickup, which has a little bit more low mids and mid-range. Another con is the base plate was really square. I'll try to include a photo or a screenshot or something in this video, and so it made it hard to fit into my guitar. I had to do some routing of the pickup cavity, which wasn't great, so I did have to take off the cover in order to get it into my guitar. Now, this was an earlier build, so I think they probably have fixed some of these issues, so I'm not sure exactly, but give them a call and see what guitars it'll fit in without modification. Because I think my guitar had a particularly small pickup cavity. All right, so time for my recommendation. I think if you're someone who really likes single coil pickups, but you're like, man, I can't deal with the hum, and maybe I want something that has a little bit of that humbucker flavor, but still retains that kind of clarity of the single coil, this is the humbucker for you, 100%. Or any of the other alternatives that I mentioned earlier, like the El Rayo, the Bearcat, if you're buying a Veritas guitar, or the Pope. You want something that's a little bit less humbuckery, but it still has hum cancellation and that type of thing, and isn't the size of a mini humbucker like the Filtertron. I think it's really good if you're playing. It's literally purpose built for praise and worship and other styles of contemporary, subgenres of contemporary Christian music, that type of thing. If you're playing kind of indie rock, alternative rock, classic rock, modern pop rock, ambient post rock, punk, blues, neo soul, funk, I think this could be a great funk sound, really. I really do. I think this pickup could really excel at a lot of those genres. So if you're a player who gravitates towards those genres, you might find this pickup to be really nice. Now, it's subjective, of course. You might play one of those genres and go, ew, I hate that sound of that thing. Well, let me know. Let me know in the comments. I personally think that it's probably not so great if you're into metal or jazz or hair metal or grunge or kind of those heavier genres that require a ton of gain. I think I find this pickup to kind of, it holds together way better than a single coil does under gain, thanks to that kind of those punchy bass frequencies that it chugs a lot better than like a Telecaster or a Stratocaster or a Jazzmaster would. But I do find that it's the thinness and the treble push can be a bit much when you have a ton of gain. But let me know, what you think. There's the sample of it with the BE OD by Friedman, so in there, so you can let me know if you thought it sounded good with high gain or not. All right, so that'll do it for the review of the Lambertones Crema. I would put this as a definitely check it out. Definitely buy it if you're interested. If you want to have, there's different manufacturers that make pickups like this. So check out the Lawler El Rayo. Check out the Pioneer Pope. Let me know what you think in the comments of the sound of this pickup. You have been wonderful. I've been Zachariah Connor, and I will see you next time. Bye.